This summer, during the ups and downs of the weather, not to mention the pandemic, it's good to know that in one way at least, we've been making very steady and sure progress. And that has been through our readings in the Gospel of St. Matthew. Because Sunday by Sunday, Matthew has led us through the events of the days towards the end of Jesus' earthly ministry. Now, varied though these events have been, we've had the feeding of the 5,000 and Jesus calling Peter to walk with him on the water on Lake Galilee. Matthew has steadied our gaze that amidst all of the things that are happening, all the things that are being said, there is one question. Who is Jesus? What does faith in Jesus mean? Who is he? Now, for us and for our perspective of over 2,000 years since these events, it can be hard to grasp the urgency of this question because the church has explored, argued, questioned, codified its answers to that question. But it's a question as valid today for individual Christians as it was when Matthew first wrote his gospel. Who is Jesus? Now, it's very difficult for us to imagine a pre-Christian world, a world where the distinction between God's covenant relationship with the Jewish people, the children of Israel, and the rest of the world is seen as absolute. No one outside of the Jewish law could claim a relationship with Israel's God without first becoming a Jew. And all other nations are goyim, Gentiles, aliens, outsiders. Now we know that there was a great hunger for God in the Gentile world, and Paul reminds us that the scriptures are full of references and promises to the realization of God's love for the whole of his world. But the world we're stepping into with Matthew, the division between Jew and Gentile, is, as I say, absolute. And it's precisely because of everything that happened next, and we know what happens next, that we can sometimes find it hard to really take in and take on how extraordinary Jesus coming into our world really was. And that's why today's gospel gives us a glimpse, or if I mix my metaphor, helps us to catch our breath. It helps us to look with the eyes of those who were there at the time, without the benefit of all those centuries of Christian hindsight, to look with their eyes at the question of who Jesus is, to look at it for ourselves. And so now we come to that extraordinary encounter between Jesus and the Canaanite woman. Now, as we know, if we've been here and we've been listening at home, Jesus has been teaching and healing all around Lake Galilee. And then he moves for the first time in his entire ministry outside of the Jewish territories into the area of Tyre and Sidon. Syrophoenicia, it's called in another version. If you think about it, he's moving north and west, modern-day Lebanon and Syria. For Jewish people, this area, the land of the Canaanites, is the arch-Gentile world. Many of the laws of Moses, Canaan being that promised land into which the children of Israel went, many of the laws of Moses are developed in direct opposition to the practices of Canaanites, particularly their rituals and various habits. There is no love lost between these peoples. Now, it's been suggested that Jesus actually moved out of the Jewish territories to get a bit of calm, a bit of peace, preparing for what he knows is coming next. But if it is what he intends, he doesn't get it, because immediately we're told there is a clamour for his attention. A Canaanite woman, a shouting Canaanite woman, we never know her name, claims his attention. She comes up to him and she calls him Lord. She asks for mercy and she tells him her trouble. a beloved daughter in torment. We don't know how old the daughter was, whether the daughter was with her. We don't know what exactly form this demon possession or torment took. But we know that it's enough to make a Canaanite woman, a Canaanite mother, run into the street shouting after this man she's heard of as a healer, a Jewish healer, but a healer. It's amazing the things that people will do for their children that they would never do or ask for themselves. And there's enormous vulnerability, humility, as well as desperation here. And this is, I think, where we think we know what happens next. And that's where those Christian centuries can get in the way of our reactions. If we haven't come across this passage, or we've perhaps not come across it for a while, we might expect that the disciples come to Jesus and tell him to tell her to go away, like they did with the 5,000 plus who were hungry that day, like they do later to the mothers of the children who are brought to Jesus when Jesus says, "Suffer the little children," or "Let the little children come to me." That's what we expect. Jesus will rebuke the disciples and he will listen to the woman. What actually happens next? Matthew tells us. According to the translation, what the disciples actually say is not send her away, but give her what she wants so she'll leave us alone. That's what they're saying. But Jesus does not do this. Instead, he says that he has come for the lost sheep of Israel, not for Canaanites. And then by strong implication, Jesus refers to the woman and her people as dogs. It's not fair to take the children's food and give it to the dogs, to take my gifts to God's chosen people and share them with the Gentiles. Now, if we are surprised or shocked by this, we can be certain that no one would have been surprised or shocked at the time. It would be unheard of for a Jewish man to even look at this woman, unheard that she suggests that there is anything in God's promise to her. I think it's good to remember this. I think it's good to remember what the letters BC, before Christ, actually mean after a date. Canaanite woman is not shocked, probably what she expected, but she knows who she met that day, and she will not be moved. Despite the centuries of enmity between their peoples, despite Jesus' words confirming everything Canaanites think about Jewish people, this woman does recognize Jesus as Lord, and she believes what he holds may even be shared with her. She does not hear rejection. She does not hear refusal. She hears an opportunity. She hears something in his voice, sees something in his eye, just being in his very presence. Okay then, she says, call us dogs, but even the dogs can have a few scraps from under the table, can't they? The crumbs that fall from the master's table. Then Jesus answered her, "Woman, great is your faith." And her daughter was healed instantly. This is the really shocking thing. Something truly new has come into the world, and the world is bigger and more richly, gloriously wonderful than it was before. Jesus is not just a healer for his own people. He is the world's healer. And he's the world's healer because he is God's son, because he made and loved the world to which he comes, the world he came to save and to heal. And all who believe in him are called into that shared life with him. Who is Jesus? This is who Jesus is. Now, this episode has been called the great foreshadowing of the going out of the gospel into the whole world, the true calling of belonging to all who believe in his name, the new covenant of God's love and mercy to his world. And this gospel today reminds us both of the extraordinary gift of Jesus to the world and our own response. It's good now and again to kneel, to catch our breath, to catch our breath at the wonder of it all, to recognize the world of difference that Jesus has made, to ponder anew, as that lovely hymn says, what he has done in our lives, what he wants to do, for the beyond words meaning of who Jesus is, for that to dawn and break upon us afresh. Now, this is the work of a lifetime and the worship of eternity, but we can be helped this morning by that unnamed Canaanite woman, because the words we often say as we come to the communion table were first said by her all those years ago. But the one she said them to is the same today, yesterday, and forever. May we have her humility, her tenacity, and her faith whenever we say, Lord, I am not worthy so much as to gather the crumbs from under your table, but you are the same Lord, whose nature is always to have mercy. Amen.